we focused a lot on the technology, servers, workloads, databases, web servers, storage accounts, security. Obviously, that's a large, and probably the most important aspect to a migration. But one of the other bits that is probably underappreciated is the operational model that is aligned to an adoption of cloud services. So, we're delivering IT in a different manner. Therefore, our operational model needs to reflect that. Unfortunately, most people approach a migration in a hybrid role. So I still have to manage on-premise. I still have to manage stuff with rack space, potentially. I still have to manage elements in Azure. So suddenly you've got 3 environments you need 3 different skill sets for. And it's hard for an organization to have that flexibility and that capability to meet the requirements of the 3 hosting environments. So Microsoft have developed this iterative approach that's aligned to that target state, so that North Star vision again, to help mature your operational model. So it's not overnight. Like you used to be a storage engineer that looked after my net apps on premise. Now you're a DevOps engineer that works in Azure. It's like, well, how's that work? Just because I've been on a course doesn't make me, suddenly I'm a DevOps engineer. Fantastic. I look after storage arrays. Brilliant. How am I going to change? But it's that evolution of that role change to what it needs to be going forward. Your services won't flip overnight, and it's making sure that your organization is set up to align itself closely with the changing state of your operational delivery. So we start with go next one then. Looking at small scale adoptions. So this could be where you are quite now. You're looking at embedding some cloud technology into your current operating model. So it could be, I tell you what, I want to look at, let's pick a technology, maybe SQL. I've got no DBAs, I've got no DBA capability. I have databases in my estate, but I want to start consuming PaaS delivery of SQL. Okay, well, let's look at that. Let's start small. Let's start at an early adoption phase. This isn't a role. This may be a hat that someone has to wear. Me as a cloud adoption agent, I work within an IT organization. I'm then tasked with evaluating whether or not we can adopt platform services for our SQL estate. So maybe I go through an assessment. Maybe I deploy the DMA, the database migration assessment for Azure Migrate, just to go through and look at maybe there's potential blockers. It's a minimal effort, but it's about understanding the technology and seeing how that can be adopted within my organization. It's a small scale, early stage effort that is minimal. It's not employing someone off the street and saying, look, you're going to be my cloud adoption specialist, because you haven't validated it. They could go off and look at this and say, tell you what, we've got dependencies into maybe just distributed transactions and stuff like that don't work in the way that they work in a platform play. Okay, well, straight away there's a blocker there. There's some development we need to do. Let's reevaluate this once we've got a better understanding, or maybe there's another trigger that's been identified. Maybe we then start looking at file or security or another project. But you've spent a minimal amount of time investing in this, which is probably where you all are at the moment. You're probably all cloud adoption agents. You've probably been tasked or identified where cloud can help you, and you're evaluating it. At the end of the day, you're kicking the tires of Azure to make sure it aligns with what you need to achieve going forward. And that North Star vision, you may or may not know, you're trying to align your organization to an adoption of Azure. Once you've gone through that, the next one here, we can then flesh that out a bit more. We can then state, look, I've gone through, I've got an assessment, there's no blockers, this database is compatible with moving to PaaS. It should be quite straightforward for us, no red flags. Brilliant. Look, you validated it a little bit. Let's go in there and let's develop this minimal viable product. Let's start bringing in an element of governance. So, the cloud adoption is still there. They're responsible for, assessing the technical solution, making sure it aligns with what we're trying to achieve as a business, and looking at the operational and project management frameworks around what's adopted. And then we bring in the cloud governance. That's really used to balance the team out, to make sure that there are some elements of accountability. where if you're going to use SQL in Azure, have you thought about the security model? Have you thought about, when we deploy things into a production environment, how we automate that? Have you thought about how we're going to support this going forward? Have you got the right tool sets? Things like that. Governance just kind of brings you back down to earth, because it's easy to run away and say, this is brilliant. I went on a webinar, Sean talked about this, that and the other, fantastic, let's do it tomorrow. Governance kind of says, well, okay, brilliant, you want to do it, pat on the back for all the enthusiasm, but it's bringing you back down to earth. And have you thought about this, that and the other? If you haven't, let's evaluate that. Let's put some governance in this. Let's start scoping out an MVP deployment, or maybe a pilot deployment, or a proof of concept that will allow us to dig deeper and make sure that this is definitely what we need to do as an organization. It aligns with what we're trying to do, but we've put some guide rails around it, so we're not just getting caught ahead of ourselves, to make sure that we can do this successfully. Once we've established that, we then bring in the central IT function. We've gone off, we've done a proof of concept, we've established an MVP. We know this is going to work because we've put some guide rails around it, we've put some sense around it. So we can then bolster our adoption agents. Suddenly it's not just Sean having a look at SQL. Suddenly we start bringing some DBAs in, we start bringing some developers in, we start bringing some other people from the business that want to drive this technology and help us evaluate this going forward, and bringing that central IT function into it. The central IT team there, this is just an example. This is the nirvana of Microsoft. The real world is you've probably got many hats on and you haven't got all this capability, but they're responsibles and roles. So things like IT operations, we need to bring them in to say, well, once we've placed this into production, how are you going to support it? How do you know the lights are on? How do you know it's performant? Administration, how are you going to go in and enforce change and fix things and make sure things are running as smoothly? How are your DevOps and automation engineers going to approach this? What about your security component? I've got a baseline and all my databases, I want them to have TDE on all the time. Okay, brilliant, that's supported. Well, let's look at that. Let's make sure the central IT team come into that, and they're part of that conversation. So when we go from pilot to production to an operational model, we've got buy-in from the IT team and we know what we're doing. Until we can mature that even more, the next one in, which then allows us to identify more strategic alignment with our vision going forward. So now we've got hundreds of cloud adoption agents going around evaluating technology. Oh, Azure can do this, Azure can do that, isn't it great, isn't it great? Let's calm down again, and where we did that previously with the governance, let's identify some strategy. Let's make sure we're doing things that still align itself to the business stakeholders, the North Star vision of our organization. Let's make sure that when you're looking at evaluating, I don't know, Sentinel, for example, well, we've currently got a tool that does all the SIAM stuff. Us replacing that is going to be a massive project. What are the benefits of us replacing that? Okay, it does this, this, and this. Okay, well, brilliant. But does that align with the strategy of the company going forward? And it's just trying to bring a sense of order before people get excited about using different technologies. So making sure we align that governance early on, but then aligning that strategy a bit later on also. Then we move to maturing that operational model as well. So not only from a strategic perspective, but also shifting IT operations to cloud operations. It just looks like a name change here, but it's a journey that IT delivery has to go on. I'm currently worrying about backups on site. I'm currently worrying about network connections, storage arrays. That's changed. As that element shrinks, the cloud element grows, your roles will change. The roles within your organization will change. That isn't an overnight experience. Moving from IT operation to cloud operations, it could be a number of years. It could be a partner assisted action as well. Cloud Direct offered managed services that come and tactically help you fill the gaps. Where you've got a burning platform on premise, I haven't got time to manage my Azure estate. Well, Cloud Direct can come in and do that until you're in a position to take that over in the long terms and run that as a cloud operation team rather than a tactical IT operations element. So hopefully that makes sense with that. This will evolve eventually to this center of excellence. So this is the end state everyone wants to get to, or maybe it's depending on your organization and how far down the road you want to go. But you can see there we've got the adoption agents being governed by the strategy. You've got the cloud operation team that underpins all of this. No matter what the adoption agents and the strategists go out and identify, the operation teams are able to support this going forward. And that centre of excellence starts embedding, cloud governance, cloud platform. How can I run this at scale? Automation. Am I getting efficiencies from running things as code and turning things on and off? The things that we've talked about. What about cloud security? Things are done differently in the cloud. I've gone away from IT security to cloud security, and I've built up this true cloud competency, which evolves itself into this cloud centre of excellence. So this is theory based, obviously. Probably scared half of you thinking, crap, my IT operation has to change massively. This isn't an overnight process, and it evolves as fast as the business change velocity within your organisation evolves. So it's not to scare you, and it's not to kind of also identify where people need to change their roles. It's an evolving process. It's not overnight. You have to make 50 people redundant because I need cloud engineers. Well, no, you've got people there that can be evolved. You can put learning streams around there. Microsoft provide a lot of educational support. Let's get your engineers trained in the different tool sets so they can provide value higher up the stack and within different tool sets. It's not about making my backup engineer redundant because I don't use the backup tool that he used before. It's about nurturing his skills and changing his skills in line with the business process.